Welcome to Paris, a State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hi, Marie. Welcome back in the podcast room.
Hi, Gail. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Busy with work, as always.
So today I thought that we could try to talk about something a bit unique, a unique way to buy or sell in France. It's an interesting thing because it may sound bad because we can say that we could bet on the death of someone, even though it's a little more than that. And do you know what is a viage? This is the name of this way of purchasing.
I heard it before, but I'm not really sure.
So a viager is a purchase or a sale that you do, but the place becomes fully yours when the seller dies.
Ooh, really? That sounds a little creepy, but I think we have something similar in English. It's called life annuity property or something like that. And I think actually the word viager comes from an old French word, doesn't it? Meaning like duration of life,
Exactly.
which kind of makes sense to what you're saying. Still a bit creepy though.
It's not that creepy. It may sound like it, but usually when you are a seller, when you sell something in viager, you will usually get a big amount of money, what we call the bouquet, which is a really nice word, don't you think?
Yes.
And the bouquet is
Flowers?
yes, exactly. It's a kind of down payment. So you can choose, it can be like a large one or a small one. And then you are going to have a monthly amount that is going to be given to you until the day you die. So it's interesting, especially when, so first for people who have, for example, no kids, no family around that could inherit it from you. But it's also, even though you do have kids, you have a family. But for example, we know that we live longer and longer and that we may be dependent at some point. So that means that we'll be probably happy to make sure that you manage the thing and that your kids are not going to pay for you when you need, for example, a retirement home or when you do some specific work or renovation in order to adapt to yourself and your situation and everything. So it's not that creepy in that way. One of the best thing for a seller when you sell in viager is that once the sale is closed, like you have decided for the bouquet and for the amount of you'd like to get every month and that everyone agrees on that, then it will be the buyer who will take care of many things like the building utilities. You don't pay them anymore. The apartment maintenance, everything that is usually on behalf of the owner, like it's the owner duty, then it will be the buyer who do so. So in fact, you are going to get money. You, of course, take care of the little maintenance of your property, but you don't have the large amount that you are supposed to take care when you own the place. So in some way, it's very interesting. And the plus is that the monthly fee you get, you have some, how do we say that, like tax waive?
Oh, tax waiver.
Yes, it's not taxed a lot. So this income's coming in, you will not pay that much tax on that. So it's like if you need a part of cash and then if you are okay with monthly incomes, it can be really interesting.
Huh. Yeah, because then, as you say, if you don't have a family to take care of you, if you don't want them to have that burden of financially dealing with it, then yeah, it's great if you need to, say, go to a retirement home. Oh, so there's a question. If you do go to a retirement home, so you're not living in it anymore, does the new owner get to take it over or not until you die?
No, in fact, he can take it over in order to rent it. But for example, I have the case in one of the property we manage. The buyer, we do put it on the market for rentals. The new owners is getting rent, and then with this rent, she's paying the person who sold the I don't know how would you say, like the first owner, like something like
The
that.
old person.
Yeah, or the old person.
The person you're waiting to die. Oh.
No, it's not that way.
Oh, I think I had a lightning bolt that just came and struck me down for saying that.
Yeah.
So, but like, what if you're married? How does that work?
You can actually make a viager on one, what we call is like one or two heads. So it's like, in order to know, because of course there is a question of the price of the viager, like what is the bouquet you are going to get and what is the monthly income you are going to get. Of course, if you sell a viager right in Paris, for example, you may get a higher amount than if you are like in the middle of nowhere elsewhere in France, for example. And then it can be for you and for your loved one. So if so, the value of the viager, the value of, okay, what is going to be the bouquet and what is going to be the monthly incomes will depend on your age, on the genders, because then after it's like an algorithm to say, okay, women are living longer than men, and there is a lot of things that coming in. And then we can have a value, but this is not final. This is not like the classical sale. This is a value that we can say, okay, considering this and that, we can expect for a property like yours to give you this kind of bouquet and to have this kind of monthly amount. But then after it's a negotiation.
Okay, so it's not like fixed.
No. Usually when you are passing through a company that is experts and that can sell or purchase viager, an agent, for example, they will usually give you some trends. Then after you can discuss, but then after it's like you can discuss with the person you are selling through, like the agent, but also of course with the buyer. Like you said, okay, I want this amount, but the buyer says, okay, I don't have the money to make this kind of bouquet, but I'm okay to raise the monthly incomes. Everything is negotiations, but you have to take into consideration, of course, to get a fair price. Usually when the agent is giving you an evaluation, it's a good start. And so it can be on one or two head of one of the person's dice. It's not sold until the two persons are not anymore with us.
Ah, okay. Until
So we don't push someone
day.
away. You will make the viage sound creepy.
So is it only for like my primary home, like where I live full time or most of the year?
First, for you, it's not going to work. You are too young to suggest your property on the market for a viager. But it can be your primary or secondary home, which is very interesting because, in fact, for example, you own a place, I don't know where in France, and you want to sell your secondary home in Paris as a viager, you can do so. So it's a good way to have incomes and maybe not put away your primary home, for example, for your kids once you are not there anymore. And so, no, it can be really for any properties. Or maybe you would say the reverse, like you will keep your Parisian property as a primary home because maybe it's the most interesting for you, and maybe you can sell the other one as a viager.
And so, and I can still live in it up until the day I die.
Again, you are still too young to sell your property on a viager. But yes, you can. That is the good thing, that you can stay. You're in your home. It's like it's your home. It's like you sell partially the place, and you will not be there once someone else will take this over. But one important thing is that, for example, if you sell your secondary home, or if you are already you need to go in a retirement home or anything, the good thing is that when you sell what we call an empty nest, then the value of the viager is higher because, as we were saying, the buyer can take it over in order to put that on the rental market, for example. He could live in himself or herself, but it can also be on the rental market, so it can cover a part of the expense of the viager.
We'll be right back with Paris, a State of Mind, after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, a State of Mind. And so how does it work about if I have children or a spouse, like my beneficiaries, the people who would inherit? How does that work? How does it affect them?
So once it's sold, you are going to go through a notaire to make the purchase, like for the same system as any sale. But once it's sold as a viager, then your family will not access to this patrimony. It's no longer yours and it's no longer theirs. But usually, and there is always this question on, okay, am I going to, how do you say, like, déshériter?
Disinherit.
disinherit your own family, but in some way, some people are using the viage, and when they have the bouquet, which is usually the first down payment, which is usually the higher portion of the sale. Some people are donating this, for example, partially, eventually, or totally, because then they will have the monthly incomes coming in. So we can see that as a creepy way, say, okay, I'm expecting someone to die in order to be owners, to own the place and everything. Or we can say, okay, it's not fair for the family, but in some way it helps you to be more independent until the day you die. So in some way you don't, as you were saying, you don't give the burden of when you depend on someone when you are older. Sometimes it can really be a burden. So in some way you can relieve them from something. It's like it can be interesting.
Can imagine, okay, I have my daughter and I absolutely love my daughter. And obviously, if I wanted to pass something on to her, I would. But imagine if I didn't love my daughter and I didn't want her to have anything and things, and I wanted to do a viage. Can my children or my dependents or my spouse contest if I try to make a sale that way? Is there any like legal way? They don't have to agree, right?
No, but in France you cannot, how do you say, disinherit it?
Disinherit.
Disinherit. Sorry, I have an additional syllable. You cannot spoil your kid and say, okay, you are not going to get the thing, at least for 25% of what you owns, like in total in France. So like, even though you hate each other, there is this 25%, which is like something which is saved for your family. So then you have to see the specifics with your notaire. Because of course, on this portion, I will not be the one who is the expert on that, but potentially a part of the bouquet or a part of the rent could be, if this is the only thing you have. But this is something that you should definitely talk to with your notaire, because it's the notaire who is going to make the final sale and the final paper. And those are the one who will be the expert on that. On the additional thing that we can say is that usually we make fun saying, okay, you don't do it yourself, pass through a professional and everything. We know that for many things, if you manage, in particular the French language, you can do some of the things like on the sale, on the rentals, you can do some of the thing on your own without the benefits of an agent, even though we think it's better, but you can, and there is nothing which restrain you from that. On this kind of thing, for a viager, you really have to go with specifics. You have to go to a notaire. It's better to pass through an agent. You have some companies who knows how to do viager, and it's very important to pass through that if you want to have like a smooth thing. There is really some companies. It used to be a kind of old-fashioned way when we talk about viager. There is this famous film in a movie in France which is called The Viager, where it's a funny one where the guy never dies. Like the guy dies after the buyer did purchase. So this was a funny film, and we have this funny story also about Jeanne Calment. I don't know if you heard from her.
No.
The oldest French woman who happened, I don't know, I think she died at like the 115, something like that. I don't know exactly, but what was funny is that she died after everyone's in her family, and she had a viager or something like that. So it was...
That's hysterical.
Yeah, so this was funny. But in the other way, if we can keep on that like this, if you purchase a viager and then the guy dies 2 weeks after, this will not be valid. Right? You cannot, this is, to avoid.
So you can't put arsenic in the tea,
no.
Like no arsenic in the tea, asbestos poisoning, nothing like that.
Exactly. There is some
not that I'm plotting.
Yes, there is some time frame to keep on in order to make it look real. Look, it's weird to say that, but yes, you can, sometimes things can happen like a few months after you purchase, and sometimes it can take years, but it's an investment. And last but not least, the value, we didn't talk about that, but the value of the viager, of course, it's the age of the person who sells, and if there is one or two person, but it's also the value of the property itself. The first thing that an agent will do will be, okay, if it was a regular sale, what would be the price? And depending on that, then all the information about the person who sell the property, then with the algorithm, we will have a trend on what would be the bouquet, what would be the income and everything.
So it could potentially actually be financially a better deal if you weren't in a hurry to move into the property, but wanted to have some patrimony
Exactly.
in France. Like if you wanted to buy something, but not in a hurry, it could be a better deal.
Yes, because it's you have of course to make sure that the property is in good shape. Because if you have too many work on that, but even though some part of the work may be tax deductible, so this is a kind of thing that you can be accompanied by accountants in order to make sure that you do the things. And in some way also for the buyer, it can be a way to build up your patrimony. And for the seller, there is also an interesting way. We talked a lot about furnished rentals. And I had the case with an owner who was like more than 17. And we did the comparison between what is the monthly rent he was getting with us compared to what would be the monthly income he would have if he sells as a viager. And when you compare, he will gain the same amount of incomes, but there is more deduction possible on the viager. And you don't anymore, you don't use, you don't pay for the building utilities and for the maintenance. Though sometimes, once you pass a certain age, and if you are in the situation where you, with your kids and family, you are very clear on what you want to do and what can be done and everything. Sometimes when you compare, if you own the property and you put it on the market for furnished rentals, for example, maybe it's more interesting to finally sell it as a viager and get a monthly income. You will be less taxed and you will have less worry in terms of maintenance and building utilities and all the sounding questions.
Oh, interesting. Well, I guess that, I have to remember that the word viage means duration of life because then the whole process makes logical sense.
Yeah. So today it was a pretty dense one. What did you learn today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I learned that sometimes it's good when people die and sometimes it isn't. But maybe you shouldn't wish that people die because that's not very nice. But if they do, then you can get a property that sometimes is a better deal. But no, I'll stop talking about death. The only things in life that are constant are death and taxes. But no, I learned a lot. It's a very interesting way to purchase a property. I do think probably most situations with a viagère, they're probably like literally gut jobs because they're older people that have maybe lived there for decades and decades. So there's probably a lot of work that has to be realized as well in most cases, but not all. I had, not to sound creepy again, but on my floor, remember sometimes you hear all the construction that's been going on when we've been on the phone?
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 people on my floor that died. They were both older people, and both of the apartments were a gut job. I didn't serve them any tea. It's nothing to do with me. But I could also say that the person directly below me died too. I don't know what's going on. Wasn't me though. But yeah, so in those cases, they were big, complete gut jobs. But yes, what did I learn going back to that? That yeah, it could be a really interesting deal. And I think because of, I guess, the little more technicalities about it, it is much better to probably deal with a professional for that because it can be confusing.
Yes, exactly.
I learned stuff. Thank you, as always.
Yeah, and it's a pretty unique way because there is only this in France. It's like it's a really unique French way.
The French are unique. They're original, original. Well, thanks very much for teaching me something new yet again.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. And so we'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah, see you back soon in the studio. Have a lovely day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Au revoir tout le monde.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Paris, A State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Lokim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, A State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.